King of Tokyo is a fast and silly dice game from designer Richard Garfield and publisher Yellow.
In King of Tokyo, players are giant monsters rampaging through Tokyo and destroying everything in their path, including each other. It plays in only about half an hour and supports from 2 to 6 players. There's also an expansion called Power Up, which adds yet another monster, as well as evolution cards that are going to make permanent changes to each monster over the course of the game.
So each player starts King of Tokyo by choosing a monster and taking their monster board. On the board, their life points are set to 10 and their victory points are set to 0. Then the main board is set up with the tokens, and 3 cards are laid face up on the table.
On their turn, each player rolls the 6 black dice, and then any number of those can be re-rolled up to 2 times. Now there's 4 different symbols that can appear on these dice: numbers, energy, attacks, and hearts.
If you roll a triple of any one number, you immediately get that number of victory points, plus 1 for every extra die that you rolled with that number on it. You record these victory points on your monster board. For each energy symbol that you rolled, you collect 1 green cube and place it in your stockpile.
Now the first player to roll an attack symbol gets control of Tokyo and moves their monster token onto the Tokyo board. In smaller games, only Tokyo City is used, while in a 5 or a 6 player game, you're going to add Tokyo Bay and make room for a second monster inside Tokyo. As soon as a monster enters Tokyo, they immediately get 1 victory point, and then you get 2 victory points for every turn that you start in Tokyo. Now, unfortunately, every monster inside Tokyo cannot use any hearts to heal.
After the first player has entered Tokyo, all attack symbols that are rolled on dice do damage to monsters that are not in your area. So if you're in Tokyo, you'll do damage to all the monsters outside of Tokyo, and vice versa. Each attack symbol that's rolled does 1 damage.
Now, hearts let monsters outside of Tokyo heal 1 point of damage per heart. A monster that's inside Tokyo can choose to retreat after they've taken damage from an attack, and then the monster that dealt damage to them takes their place in Tokyo. Now, if any monster is reduced to 0 life, they're dead and they're eliminated from the game, and if this happens to the monster in Tokyo, then their attacker replaces them.
So after resolving their die rolls, each player then can choose to purchase one of the 3 face-up cards on the table using their energy cubes. And these cards come in 2 types. The first type will give you a bonus to your abilities, so it might give you extra energy or an extra die roll or perhaps a re-roll ability. The other type will have a single effect, so it will either cause an awful lot of damage or maybe give you a whole lot of victory points. Now, if a monster that's in Tokyo is killed by one of these cards, that monster is not immediately replaced. A player can also choose to spend 2 energy to discard all of those cards that are face up on the table and deal out 3 new ones.
Once a player has resolved their dice and bought and used any cards they'd like to, it's the next player's turn. The game continues until one player has made it to 20 victory points, or until there's only 1 monster left standing.
So I like King of Tokyo. It's a really fun game, and I have a lot of fun with this game. It's got a nice addition of strategy to it. So it's not just a dice game. There's that sort of push your luck mechanic, so you're trying to figure out how long you should stay in Tokyo, when you should leave, and that adds something extra to this game, which is very nice. Also, the cards and the expansions allow you to customize your strategy a little bit and change up your monsters a bit. If you don't use the cards and the expansions, then the monsters are pretty much all the same. So this gives you a really nice opportunity to customize your game. On the negative side though, this game does have a lot of randomness in it. It is a dice game, so there are some people who don't really like the whole grab a whole lot of dice, roll them, and see what you can do with the results. So this game does add a little bit of strategy to that, but at its basis, it is a random dice game. And some people, that's not going to be their thing.
Another potential drawback of King of Tokyo is that it really is at its weakest with the smaller number of players. If you've only got 2 of 3 of you, it's still pretty fun, but it's not really gonna reach its full, ridiculous, raucous potential. Another thing that I do need to mention is that the components start to show wear pretty quickly. There's this great art, but it uses very dark colors and it goes all the way to the edges of the cards and the player boards, and those tend to get scuffed pretty quickly. You'll see some white showing up pretty fast, so you do really want to take care of your components and not just throw them around the way you might want to do with a dice game. Now, those components in many ways make this game for me. The mechanics are solid and it's a lot of fun to play, but the real appeal of King of Tokyo is being a giant monster stomping around Tokyo, and the art is just fantastic in conveying that. My favorite is probably the king, who is a giant gorilla King Kong-like creature, but he's drawn with this great dynamism and these giant fists, and you just look at the characters and you immediately know that they're in the middle of a rampage and having a great time, and it really just carries the game and gives it so much more than just its mechanics. Another fantastic thing about King of Tokyo is that it's a really solid game for a bigger group. Just like it's weaker with 2 to 3, this really comes into its own when you've got 5 or 6 players all focused on taking down that one guy in Tokyo. And because it only plays in half an hour, for a bigger group it's great to get some strategy in, get a lot of fun, and not have to commit to a big long game night to still enjoy this game.